Kat. First musical item I got was turntables, probably when I was about 13 or 14. I had some belt drive Newmark turntables. Started DJing on that, started collecting records, mainly hip hop records. And then from that, it just naturally progressed into hip hop production, Fruity Loops, and then from Fruity Loops, I was only on that for a little while, just messing around, nothing serious. When I started taking it seriously, I got MPC 1000, and since then, that's all I've been on. I was never showing the ropes. Me and a few of my friends from school, we all kind of started making music at the same time, but never really together, and they were doing different genres of music as well. So I kind of figured it all out on myself. I use YouTube quite a lot to start off with, and then you just figure stuff out and keep on improving. When I first got the MPC, came with the manual, and I kind of used it just to figure out the basics, but never really went into detail with it, and then pretty much just figured out everything for myself, and whatever I needed I would find myself on the MPC. It's pretty easy to use anyway, so it's all fine. First got my MPC when I was about, I don't know, 18, 19. I first got my MPC a few years back. Brought it from a shop called West End DJ, brand new, and yeah. The learning curve, it was kind of a big jump from Fruity Loops to the MPC, because on Fruity Loops I was messing around and it was, like I said, nothing serious. But when I got into the MPC, that's when I definitely started taking things more serious, and kind of not really like learning how to use the MPC, but learning how to make better beats overall, really. I'd say in total to master the MPC took me about good maybe 6 months to a year to really figure everything out and be making the kind of music that I want to be making on it, standalone. Yeah, I still own the MPC 1000, and I use it pretty much every day. I think the MPC was the right piece of gear to start off with, but now as I'm progressing, it can do what I need it to, and it can make the music that I want to make. But I would like to, purchase other older MPCs with different kind of sounds and kind of experiment with those and see where I can get and see how I can progress with those. I'm still on the MPC 1000. I also use a micro KORG turntable and records, and that's pretty much my whole setup. I have Logic as well, but that's just really for the final stages. It doesn't really come into my production much, but the MPC, it can do pretty much everything I need it to, along with the micro KORG now. Occasionally a few VSTs in Logic, but records and the MPC are the main thing I need. I've messed around on a machine and a few different synths, but for me, my own personal setup has been the same, pretty much since I started taking it seriously a few years ago, and it's been building gradually, and it will continue to build over the next few years. I definitely prefer hardware over software, just because I like the feel of being on the MPC, of tapping my hi-hats in, tapping my drums in, rather than just clicking them in with a mouse. I like to play the bass across the 16 notes, so I definitely prefer hardware. I just like the feel more than kind of just looking at a computer screen and having to tap stuff in. Favourite brand has to be Akai, just because the whole MPC range, everything they've done is kind of built, it's what hip hop's built around pretty much, and yeah, I use their equipment all the time. I'd recommend to a beginner maybe start off, I don't know, it depends what kind of music they want to get into, what kind of sound they're going for, but I'd probably recommend maybe starting on some software, just because it's probably easier to learn, and you can kind of develop your skills a bit more before you actually try and develop your own sound. And as you advance, you know, you can go out and kind of mess around with different equipment and see what's best for yourself. Well, I started on software and I moved to hardware, and the reason I stick with hardware is just the feel of it. And I can't stay looking at the computer screen making music continuously. I like to be, you know, just have me and my MPC pretty much, so it's hardware over software always. My views on sampling, I sample probably 95% of the time. All my drums come off records. You know, I sample, you know, daily, so I love it. And it doesn't just like stay in hip hop. There's other genres that sample as well, but people kind of don't pick up on it as much. And I know like people have their views on it and think it's lazy or whatever sometimes, but it's an art form, and yeah, I love it. The music I sample the most, I'd say a lot of prog rock records, a lot of kind of weird electronic records and library records. Yeah, the kind of sounds you can get on those are crazy, and they range through everything. So yeah, library, prog rock and electronic. I don't really share my samples with anyone. There's a few certain diggers that maybe I'll tell about a record or let them know what I've used, but I usually keep it, you know, quiet. I prefer people to kind of figure out my samples themselves if they can. All my samples come off records. I go digging every couple of weeks around London, you know, 5 or 6 different record shops in a day, and yeah, all records. Favourite sampler would have to be, well, I use the 1000 daily, you know, and I do love it, but it's definitely got its kind of limitations and it's got its problems. The pads being one of them. I'd love to get a 3000 or a MPC 60. I just love the sound of those kind of things, so probably one of those three, anyone. And favourite software, I'd say Logic. I've been on it now for about 2 years. My friend gave it to me, and yeah, it's just changed my production. Not necessarily the way I make beats, but the sound of the beats after, and the workflow is so good as well. When I'm making a beat, I can't really pick between which one I focus more on. You know, between the drums and the sample. I always start with the drums and have to get them sounding a certain way before I'll program the sample in. But I think the sample is just as important. You can have tracks, you know, with good drums and a poor sample and it kind of doesn't sound right to you. You don't want to listen more. But then the same thing goes for having a good sample and you have bad drums on it and you think, oh, this sample's been wasted. So I think both are just as important. So the best current MPC, well, I'll just go with the 1000, it's what I use, so it can definitely do what is required, but sound wise I'd go for the 3000 or the 60. Yeah, one of those two. My two favourite instruments, I'd say bass guitar definitely one, and there's a lot of kind of rare vintage synths that I love, but also kind of the drums just as equally live drums. So yeah, I go live drums and bass guitar. I can play a few keys, you know, I've learned chords and scales and all that, but I'm still learning that as I go. I'm starting to incorporate that into my production now more and more. And if I could have two instruments, I'd have to say firstly live bass guitar, because that I'd use pretty much all the time in my production, and I'd say drums, live drums. If I could learn to play one instrument, it would definitely be the bass guitar. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, and I love to incorporate it into so much of my production. I'm constantly making beats where I think, you know, a live bass on this would sound perfect, so I'd go with that. If I could choose a producer to work with on a song, I'd probably go with either Jay Dilla or Curtis Mayfield. Both are just incredible musicians, and you know, it'd be amazing just to be around them whilst they're working. Top 3 producers, Madlib definitely, his work's incredible, and not just, you know, his actual sound, but the amount of work that he's put out over the years, right up until this day. It's always a high standard, and yeah, he definitely makes some of my favourite production. Along with him, J Dilla, definitely. You know, he's got incredible songs all the way through from back at the start, you know, his early days, right up until kind of Donuts. And thirdly, I go with Dr. Dre, mainly just for 2001, the album. It's just, I go back to it all the time to reference different things. So the first track I'm going to talk about is just a recent instrumental. I didn't really want to play any unreleased stuff just yet. Didn't want to play anything too old. So I made this maybe a month ago. Picked up this sample from Flashback, Islington. It's a library record. Pretty crazy, heavy electronic stuff, big bass. So I didn't need to do a whole lot to it, you know, just a couple chops. Added some drums. Had a kind of, I don't know, sort of club feel to it, but not you know, like trap or anything like that, or dancey. But I can imagine this on some big speakers. It's pretty nice. Just a recent instrumental, something I like. Sample was so crazy. It's a library record I picked up in Flashback, Islington. Some crazy synth stuff. And I didn't have to do a whole load to it. I think the time signature was slightly weird, so I just had to kind of chop it to keep it on time, but I didn't really change the melody at all. You know, it was perfect as it was. Had this little theremin kind of synth going on there. Didn't do a whole load to it, to be honest, just the drums. Had to get them right. You know, so I'll show you the little session quickly. So, just a kick drum, simple pattern. A little snap cap, hi-hats, and an open hat. And in the session, I think I just filled with the bass for this as well. It had pretty strong low end to it. I'll probably still go back into it and kind of build around the track more once someone adds vocals to it. So that's the way I work. I kind of like to build around the rapper or whoever that artist is. But for now, you know, it's just pretty simple. It sounds quite nice. Yeah, so this is another recent instrumental. I just kind of wanted to break down the drums a little bit, show how I do that. I think, you know, everyone's got this break pretty much. It's like, it's pretty well known. It's been used a load of times, but just add a few things to kind of beef up certain sounds. I just kind of wanted to show how I do that kind of side of things. So this is the beat, you know. I think this will be used on a up and coming project, which might be out next year on 7-inch, but I can't really say much on that at the moment until it kind of gets off the ground. But this is the break. You know, like I said, everyone knows it. It's been used a lot of times. And it's just a cheap record, but you know, just kind of beef up those gigs. Add a few more sounds to it, a couple more breaks. I think I've got live claps in here as well. Just layer it all together as well. With the claps, one thing that I do always with claps and snares, layer them at different times as well. So you might get the snare hitting slightly before the clap, or the clap hitting slightly before another clap, but I'll just how it sounds their own. So it's a prog rock record I picked up in Flashback again, and it's the whole record's crazy. It's got so much to sample in it. This song was probably the best in terms of like stuff to flip. It had like multiple parts, but this track in particular, beat me to it, and he flipped like the very crazy parts for his album. It's one of the early tracks on there, but I took this little part. It's like bass and kind of dark orchestral drums, and I just started playing around with it, put it on the MPC, flipped it, and it was cool, but there wasn't a lot to it. It felt kind of bare, and I'll just kind of show you, like, had the bass, had the drums, and like, it's all cool, but it's not amazing, let's say. So I had these little stabs from the record, and these little vocal stabs that I took. And it was cool, but I felt it needed something more. So I just kind of kept hold of this, and I started building as the beat went on. So I just moved on to the micro chord, started playing a few chords that worked with the sample. And as I was going, I realised I didn't really need the sample in there. It was kind of, it wasn't working. Sometimes like less is more. So just added these little chords here, along with the bass. And then the thing I did keep was the vocal sample and those little stabs. And by the end of it, the track worked out much better. It sounded much better like this. And it just kind of made me realise, you don't always need a load going on. And sometimes it's better to strip stuff back and kind of approach tracks in a different way as well. I hadn't worked like this in a little while. It was kind of refreshing. So this track here is real simple, real stripped back, real bare. There's not a lot to it. There's 6 tracks altogether, and this is like I don't go heavy into that kind of 90s boom bap style. That's not really me, but this had that kind of feel, and it all came from this Italian prog rock sample. So I'll just play the chops quickly. Just drop this up on the MPC. It was real bass heavy already, so I didn't need to add bass to it. I don't like filtering my bass straight that much. I prefer to play in my bass or get a live bass player on a track. But this one, like you hear that, it just works, the bass heavy on it. Came up on this break. Again, it's just another loop, but it worked perfectly. And I just layered it with a heavier kick and a nice snappy snare, just to give it a bit of crunch. And then the only other thing I added to the track was this sample here. And I think this was taken from the outro. I'll just turn it up a little bit so you can hear it. I didn't do a lot to it, but layering is something I like to do a lot. And yeah, it worked. The track came out pretty nice. I'm not sure, I've not thought about who would rap on it or anything like that. I don't think I've even sent this one out much, but it's cool. It's real simple. It works. So this one here, this is a non-sample. I've been getting more into like non-sample stuff lately. Trying to keep like the same kind of vibe I go for. This one's real synth heavy. So I'll just play the drums quickly on there. The drums are still all in the MPC. It's a nice kind of little pattern. I think this is how it all started anyway, the drums. And then I just added like this little part here. Don't know if you can pick that up, but it's like a little crackle with some kind of screamy vocals in there. But that just gave it a nice kind of feel. And it gives that texture, obviously. So then this is what I started with. I think this is all on a micro chord, these parts here. I think this is just like a couple chords, like nothing too much. This beat actually was like real simple, but it had the right elements to it to make it sound good enough. So then I had this. So this was all on micro chord. And then I started getting a few VSTs lately. I got this bass off it. It sounded pretty nice. I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, there's a few other sounds scattered throughout. There's like a little build up for the chorus, but there's a couple breakdowns. I think I went on the MPC, used the vocoder to get like some nice little sounds for the outro just there. But overall, there's not a lot to it. And I mean, listening to some of my favourite electronic artists, their music isn't super like complicated or like too much into it, but it's had the right sound. It's had the kind of stuff I sample. It had that feel, so it works. It's all good. Sample here is same sample as the Phat Kat Still Bubbling track. This whole album, it's common. Like, it's not a rare record, but I don't think it's been touched that much before. I've not really heard anything of it. I flipped like basically every track on this. I think maybe every track a couple of times. But this, I just made something quite nice out of it recently. It's being used. I won't say by who, because you never know with rappers like if they'll release stuff or not. I don't really want to jinx it, but it's being used and by a nice group, so they're dope. Like, and hopefully this will be out soon enough. Probably not this year, but maybe next year. But yeah, it's just like, you know, there's not a lot to it. The sample, the bass, some nice drums. I think I layered a break underneath it as well, and added a couple Simpson on top as well. So this track here, me and Braydz have been working on a little album EP. We're not sure yet. Like, I think it might be 10-11 tracks. So yeah. And I've been making like these loop beats for a while, you know, like not much to it, no drums or anything like that. But this record, just came off this Polish record. I don't have it here to play you. I traded it for BDP back in the summer, but I didn't do a lot to it. That was a loop, and I just added these light little drums just to kind of boost what was there. But the album me and Braydz have got is crazy, and I'll just give you a little taste of that. This is the first track on the album, and every track's crazy. We got a feature from West Side Gun on there, who's one of the best out of the moment now. So I'm pleased to have been able to work with him, and I've already got plans to work on the second one. Already got loads of tracks ready for that, so it's going well. So this track here is the sample for another one on the Phat Kat album. It's another one of the Euro versions, the remix. This one's featuring Elzhi and Simpson. I picked up this sample up in Notting Hill actually, at one of the shops there. And it's crazy, it's just all electric violins and kind of weird synths. But I'll get into the track. Through Phat Kat, I met Guilty Simpson and Elzhi. Phat Kat put me in touch with Elzhi, I think, you know, maybe back in 2011 or 2012. Since then I've been sending him tracks, and like, we've worked quite a lot together. I know he's working hard on his album, and I'm hoping to have some stuff on that, and hopefully that'll be out soon as well. I know he's got loads of stuff on it, which I've heard, and it's very great. I've done like 4 or 5 songs with Elzhi now, and every time they're so crazy. He's definitely one of my favourite rappers. So lyrical, like every time you hear it, he kills everyone in every track he features on pretty much. And this verse here was crazy. When I got that Capellas through, I was like flowing into quite a while, but yeah, it's definitely one of my favourites. This track off the new Phat Kat album should be out today. Day this video release, October the 30th. I met Phat Kat, I don't know, a few years back with Braydz. Worked on a track back then, and I kept on sending him beats. And he was picking them like now and again, but then eventually, as I improved, like I started sending them when I was young, as I improved, he started to really start to like pick some and start to use them. And then we had, I don't know, maybe four tracks by then, and we just decided to go with an EP and work on an EP. And this track he actually recorded back when he did the track with Braydz back in, I think, 2011. And he used the old beat back then, but he completely chose a different beat, decided to go with this one instead. And I'll get into it and talk a little more. So he chose this and went with 7 tracks for the EP, and it's probably one of my favourites of the US version. We've got 2 versions, this and the US, this and the Euro version, which I'll talk about a bit more. But he did what I wanted to hear on this track. It's just hard, you know, it's lyrics. Not too deep or anything like that. It's a short track, it's just a couple of minutes long. I made this back in 2013. Most of the album was done back in 2013 actually, but it's finally getting released now. And yeah, I'm pleased with how it's turned out. It's my first proper release. Out on vinyl, out in stores, everything. So yeah, check it out if you can. It's another one with Phat Kat. This one's off the Euro version, which is basically a remix of the original EP. So it's all 7 tracks again, just completely different beats. And basically, the way this came about. Yeah, let me see where should I start. Dedicate this to all the ladies with broken hearts. He was sending me tracks over old beats. I'd send him batches of like 30 tracks at a time. So, and he was sending me beats like by that time I'd completely passed on from like style changes and stuff. So I thought, let me remix 2 of them. So he'd send over the vocals and I remix them and send them back, see what he thinks, and then I just wanted originally 7 tracks, that's it, with, you know, a few of my remixes, a few of the originals, but he came up with this concept, let's do a US version and a Euro version, and the Euro version is all the remixes. Yeah, so this is probably my favourite of that. So I'll just show you how I break down a beat, how I create. Everything pretty much goes through the MPC 1000. Got my Stanton Turntable here. Micro KORG, which is just out of shot, but use that for bass, sometimes Simps, sometimes even vocoder. Event 2020 monitors, and then everything just runs into Logic. Sometimes I add stuff on there, but most of the time that's kind of just the last bit of process. So yeah, I start off with a sample on this one. Got a sample all chopped up on here. Got it across only 8 pads. There's only 8 chops I think for this, but yeah, my pads are starting to go, like the load button doesn't work. I have to go into the save menu to get into the load menu. So I'm trying to use these 8 pads here as little as possible, only really for the 16 levels. But I got the sample chopped up. With a sample, I like to number them as I bring them into the MPC, and then I lay them across the pads in order of how I'll play them. So I'll be messing around with a melody, and then once I got something I like, I'll just try and order them like that across the pads, just to make my workflow easier, and just to make it easier for me to remember. Then once I got the sample in, might trim it. First thing I'll do, change the level, bring it down slightly. It's usually just slightly too high. Change the sample to note on. That means I'm playing it like this. You know, if I take it to one shot, it just plays the whole thing. So take it to note on, kind of like I'm playing a piano. You know, however long you hold it down, that's how long it sustains. Go over to level, add a little attack to certain pads. Sometimes I have it on every sample chop. Sometimes only on a few. Depends. Once I've got that in, I won't program the melody yet. I'll know what kind of thing I've got in my head, and I'll figure out the drums I want. So on there, got my kick drum there. That's 3 different breaks just layered on top, and then it's quite a deep kick underneath, just to give it some boom. Got that snare there, that snare there. Open hat, another open hat, these two snares from a break, this, you know, the tail's a lot longer and it's got that kind of crackle in it. Just add some nice texture to the beat. Got some open hats there. Got a drum break chopped up there. And then I took this from a synth record, and it's just like this kind of weird noise, but it makes a clap, and it's quite nice just to add underneath stuff. I don't think I've got anything else chopped up on here at the moment. Yeah, so first thing I'll do, I'll work out the tempo I want. So I've got that set here, and first part of the drums I'll lay is the snare, because that's the easiest thing to keep me in time as I'm going. So we'll start with the snare then. Always start this on track 2, just makes it easier for when I'm tracking stuff in. It goes kick, snare, hats, samples, bass, whatever, but I just like to keep that order. So we'll just start with the snare here. I got the quantize onto 16. Might just have to open up the note edit quickly. Sometimes I just mess around, like change a few notes, change the positioning, just make sure everything's nice and tight. We'll go with this snare now here. Just layer that over the top. Go back in, add a couple little ghost snares, just like keep the pattern going. And then we'll get onto the open hats. Hi-hats, I'll keep them separate for this because the open hat going quite a lot. Usually, like, I'll just do it all in one track, but this time I'll separate it out. Just makes it a little bit easier. For the hi-hats, always take quantize. For the hi-hats, always take quantize off. Figured out how I want to play it. Just go into note, step edit quickly. Just fix up a few notes where, you know, either where I've brought them in slightly too early or slightly too late. Just make sure everything's kind of a little tighter. With these hi-hats here. See how that's sounding. Might move a few things about. Just move that. Trying to figure stuff out. How I do. I usually just play around with it, either on here on the step edit, or actually, you know, knocking on the pad. It's usually the best way to come up with stuff. But yeah, so now we got those hi-hats all in open hats as well. That melody is cool. Yeah, so I've got this break chopped up here. I think I've taken this from another beat actually, but it just works with this, so we'll just quickly program that in. That's all in place, and I'll just go into the sequence edit and just copy that across. You know, save me time there, and just get that all in. How we got it sounding now. Check on those snares, see. Let's get these kicks going. I'm trying to keep my drums here just a 1 or 2 bar pattern. Sample quite a lot's going on, so the drums don't need to be super complicated or anything. So I just copy that kick pattern across. 2 bar drum pattern down there like this now. Sounds good. I'll keep that. And we'll start on the samples. I've only got 8 chops here. It's quite simple. Sometimes I have, you know, 3 banks of chops. Sometimes I have just, you know, 1 or 2. All depends, but I got them all in order how I want to play them. So let's try program those in. Go into the step edit mode quickly. Just trim down the samples a little just to make sure nothing's clipping too much. So that's cool. Get them all tight, and this how it'll work. I just keep on going back in. Sometimes I play it all in a row. Sometimes I come back and just do it like this. Tighten those up. We got a nice little 2 bar pattern there. Nothing too complicated, but it works. It sounds nice. So you know, from this part, I'll just copy this pattern across. Depends how many chops I've got. If I've got loads of loads of pads with samples on chopped up, you know, I'll maybe make 6, 7, 8 patterns. Sometimes I'll just have 1 2 bar pattern. It depends. I'm not bothered if a song is 2 bars, loop throughout, or changes up every 8 bars. As long as it sounds good to me, that's the most important thing. And so from here, I'll just go back in, copy that sequence across, and then just change a couple of notes on that last pattern. So we've got this chopped in to here. Something didn't sound right there. Try that a little earlier. sure all these samples are tight, so nothing's clipping. Try that. That's good. I like how that's sounding now. So from this point, I think I took the bass. I took the bass and a little synth from the micro KORG. So I'll play that synth for you now. So I took everything into Logic as well. Added this synth. I just played it through. I think I played it onto the MPC at the time, but I don't have it saved on here at the moment. I'm not sure how well you can hear that. Turn up a little. I think that was just one note. Changed the release a bit on the micro KORG, and I just played that throughout. And then we had this bass, micro KORG bass. Again, I don't know how well you can hear that. It's just a nice analog thick bass. Only a couple notes, but yeah, worked well with the beat. So I'll play it now. I think there might be a few little bits added on throughout. Try to keep it interesting and keep a few change ups there. Drop the drums every now and again. Maybe drop the sample. Yeah, so that's my process there. Just how the track sounds. Drop a couple parts, you know, make the track sound nice, make it, you know, keep it interesting. But that's pretty much it. Like sometimes I'll go in, like I said, there might be 3 banks of chops. Most of the time I do my bass on the MPC. This time I think I just played it straight from the micro KORG, straight into here. But I mean, a big part of my process, and this is something I really worked on in the Phat Kat album, was him sending me vocals and me building the track around it. So from here, there's not a lot to this track, but if I had a vocal track around it, I'd build, maybe I'd like, you know, add a couple more sounds, maybe take some stuff away. You can put it in drops like this throughout and just keep it interesting. But as long as you've got the right basis, you know, this is a 4-bar beat, but it works, it's cool.